Mickey 17, directed by Bong Joon-ho and starring Robert Pattinson, follows Mickey Barnes, who finds himself in the extraordinary circumstance of working for an employer who demands the ultimate commitment to the job, to die for a living. I haven't seen enough of Bong Joon-ho, but from what I've seen, being Memories of a Murder and Parasite, he's really good at this film thing. Parasite, in my opinion, and probably for many, is one of the best films ever made, like top 15 probably. Mickey 17 has been one of my most anticipated films for a couple years since I saw Parasite. It's been delayed a lot, but I'm really glad to see it coming out now in what seems to be a pretty dry year. Off the trailers, this looks really great. It's a super cool premise, and it's really interesting seeing an English sci-fi film from Bong Joon-ho. You would think he would keep doing what he's good at, but this film looks completely different from everything else he's made. Robert Pattinson will probably be really good. He's always great in his leads, and Bong Joon-ho has made really funny films, so I assume this more comedic film will have great comedy. I'm still curious if it'll say anything interesting or deep though. My biggest worry here is that the film won't go any further with its premise. Like, after the main conflict, I hope this film keeps going in a constantly creative direction, which it might not. Okay, so that's my anticipation. I'll be back with my initial thoughts. Yeah, I can't lie, I'm a little disappointed, but, you know, it's still Bong Joon-ho. It's not like Parasite, but it's still a good movie. I have, like, issues with it. It's like, it just doesn't feel, I don't know, as well made, as personally, like, invested in. It's more just, like, a very well made, enjoyable movie, which is fine. It's a good movie. It's just like not as much as I was hoping for off the trailers. It's not as funny as I hoped. But it's still a good movie. It's made by like a very good director. It's very well put together. So, yeah, that's basically my initial thoughts. So, here's the actual review. Can you feel the light? To start off, I really liked the world building for Mickey 17. I really thought at the start the film set up its ideas really well. The movie opens with no context or explanation for how Mickey can die, so if you haven't seen the trailers, there's a long period of time where you won't know why no one really cares that Mickey's about to die. The film kind of starts like the trailers, giving narration for how the world works and why Mickey is there in the first place. I really thought these first 30 minutes were effective at giving us some great world building. This movie goes super in detail with its sci-fi concepts, like how the cloning process works, with concepts of transferring memories and recreating Mickey's body. In this opening, they also go into detail on how the cloning machine was even legalized due to the extreme moral questions around it. This opening is also great due to Robert Pattinson's narration. I love how this 30-minute opening is mostly meant to be Mickey's thoughts before his death, so it's super cluttered with the narration having a lot of stuttering and backtracking. It's a really effective, engaging, but also realistic exposition dump, along with the actual info being super interesting and well detailed, giving the audience a full detailed explanation on the main concept of this film without making it feel off. For more of the world building, I found the aliens in this film to be quite good, at least execution wise, as I do have more issues with them that I'll get into later. For the most part, they are the main visuals of this movie and they look great. They really add to the world with how uncanny and threatening they look. I think it's really cool how well these aliens are animated and executed in this movie. They are able to double as terrifying creatures and also cute, silly guys. One of the best scenes in the whole movie involves the scene where the aliens are revealed to the humans, and the way the alien sounds and is animated makes that sequence pretty dark and hard to watch. Not gonna explain what that scene actually details because of spoilers, but if you saw the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Besides the aliens, the ship, space, and planet all look great. Very strong visuals throughout this movie. It isn't used very often, so you mostly only see CGI used with the aliens, making the CGI for the most part have no real issues. This movie doesn't have a real clear message, but the main message I could pick up off this film was based on the villain of Mickey 17, played by Mark Ruffalo, who is a pretty obvious Trump metaphor. Like, Mark Ruffalo's performance for the first half of this film is pretty much just a Trump impersonation, and his followers all wear red hats with initials on it. Plus, the character is a literal president. I don't think it can get more obvious than that. I think Mark Ruffalo is pretty good in this role. I do think the Trump impersonation can go a bit too far to the point of being annoying, but he kind of drops the impersonation and becomes his own character as the film goes on. It's pretty funny how aggressively evil and unlikable the president is. He's also just so incompetent. It's really funny how he messes up during his speeches. There's just so much weird stuff going on with this guy, from his prayer song song being a 1 minute flat shot of him singing, or how much he just hates Mickey. It's a really funny, good character with an obvious person he's based on. There's also a pretty good idea connected to the president about how appealing to the media and press is his main goal. It's not explored a lot, but makes the climax a little more interesting, with the president's top priority looking good for the camera and nothing else. My favorite part of Mickey 17 was Mickey, or well, the Mickeys. The way Robert Pattinson plays both Mickeys is really fun, but it can also be super sad and strong. Robert is able to capture a lot of pain and desperation out of these two characters. Mickey 17 and Mickey 18 are both so different for no reason. It really makes no sense how both these Mickeys are so wildly different, but it is really funny how extreme Mickey 18 is and how normal Mickey 17 is. Robert is so great at playing these completely different characters. Mickey 17 is a very likable, fun lead, and Mickey 18 is just this unhinged lunatic. It's so much fun. It's a really cool idea how one of the Mickeys just decides on birth he's sick of everything and just constantly tries to murder people. My favorite jokes in the whole movie is probably how much beef these two guys have despite being the exact same person. It's great how much they trash talk each other despite, again, just being the exact same guy. I also think Mickey and the cloning concept is just the most creative part of this movie. The idea of multiples and why it's a crime is just very good. Lastly, I won't get into it, but the way this movie uses its title cards was super cool and led to a very strong conclusion. I do really like the concepts for this movie, but I do think Mickey 17 didn't go far enough with its ideas. They really rush a lot of stuff, and it leads this film to feel pretty messy and confusing at points. This movie never really explains that all the Mickeys are different and live for a long period of time before being killed. The Mickeys being different are mentioned in passing dialogue, and this movie has several montages of Mickey being killed, so it really seems like he dies every day, but Mickey has been around for 4 years and has only died 17 times, so obviously he doesn't die too often. As much as I like how different the two Mickeys are, it does really make no sense and isn't explain why Mickey 18 is so wildly different. They are literally the same guy being reborn at the same time. I think this movie would have worked a lot better if instead of Mickey 18 instantly becoming a psychopath, there was more build-up, like having both Mickeys start the same but Mickey 18 slowly gets more frustrated at the world. I think it would function well at seeing these two sides of Mickey. Mickey 18 being this rage that he's buried away. I think that would improve the film's pacing a lot and lead the Mickeys to still be different and get all the comedy from the concept. This movie goes into so much detail with its ideas, but they kinda ignore confusing stuff like this. I also think this movie doesn't build up a lot of its side plots, and there are a lot of side plots in this movie that really don't add up to anything and are just kinda dead ends. I also think this movie could have had more build up for characters besides Mickey, Natasha, and the president. I pretty much don't get to know anyone else, and these random characters do play a part in the plot, so it's kinda strange how little we learn about them before they're actually important to the story. Yeah, the pacing was pretty messy. I think the first hour was very strong, but it did start to drag afterwards. Now, this movie is very well directed, but there are some slip-ups here that lead the directing to falter a bit. Some of the dubbing and acting is bizarre, and the movie itself is pretty dry with its comedic timing. I think some of the editing in the trailers are actually more funny than the actual scenes in the movie themselves, just because of how they're executed. The comedy does work for the most part, but it's sometimes very off because of how long scenes go on for. Additionally, the ending speeches are pretty dry, no music or anything, just a kinda unnecessarily long speech. Plus, they're kinda corny and poorly written. The finale is also a bit too dramatic and corny, just a lot of off-feeling scenes. Plus, I wish this movie would go more weird, like have a billion Mickeys or something, do something chaotic and crazy with the concept. This movie is very off and weird, but just not enough. There's a chance maybe this movie is kinda stiff due to Bong never working with English actors, but I think he's talented enough to direct anyone. I can't really put together why this movie is so dry and off. Maybe that's what he intended. Even if he did intend that, I don't think it's done very well. The aliens are pretty technically cool characters, as said before. They look great and have cool designs, but plot-wise, they aren't nearly as interesting as the rest of the movie. They take up a lot of focus towards the end, and while they're still pretty good, I do wish this plot focused less on the random aliens but more on the Mickey concept. The aliens just aren't as interesting. Their concepts are far more uninteresting than the cloning idea of this movie. Plus, there are twists with them that are predictable, and again, they just take up far too much screen time. That could be used for better pacing and better character development. They definitely aren't bad, but they just aren't nearly as creative as the rest of the film. This was a bit of a letdown, but Mickey 17 was still a good movie. My favorite aspect was Mickey or the Mickeys, and my least favorite aspect was probably the pacing. And so I'm gonna give Mickey 17 a solid 7 out of 10. This was probably my least favorite Bong Joon-ho film so far, although I've only seen 3, and the other 2 I've seen are often considered his best, so that'll probably change. Anyways, watch Novocaine in theaters next week. I saw an early screening of it and it was great. Novocaine is probably the best film of the year so far, so be sure to check it out. For future videos, I'll probably be talking about Black Bag or something next week, and I'm working on my big video at the end of the month. Thanks for watching, and this is an epic outro.